Massive news this, because today Morgan Gibbs-White was due to be having his Spurs medical. However, it's resulted in Nottingham Forest reporting Spurs to the Premier League, and they're considering taking legal action because they believe that Spurs' approach for Gibbs-White is actually illegal. I'm going to do my best to break it down and explain exactly what's going on and why it's going on as well. But if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. Approximately half of you watching this video are yet to subscribe, so please do stick around. Come and join the journey. I would appreciate it a lot. And also drop a like on the video as well by clicking the thumbs up button. You can get 200 likes. That would be fantastic. But massive thank you for all the support so far. Right, yesterday came out by David Ornstein in the afternoon, 3 p.m. or so, roughly around right then, that Spurs want Gibbs-White. Thomas Frank is a huge admirer of the Nottingham Forest attacking midfielder. They were wrapping up Mohamed Kudus joining from West Ham for 55 million. That's done. That was confirmed and announced last night. Gibbs-White was next. They were moving immediately on to him. So the original news was that Tottenham like Gibbs-White and they're going to make a bid for him. Very, very quickly, and this escalated really quickly. Within a couple of hours it came out. Actually, Tottenham have activated his release clause. Personal terms have been agreed, and that Friday afternoon, then following day, which is today, Gibbs-White would actually be having his Spurs medical. Wow, this one was fast moving. And sometimes when these things happen, you think, well done to the buying club. They've got this done really quickly. No one's knew about it. Superb. But sometimes there is actually something else going on. Now, I appreciate the jokes here, which is, hang on a minute, player has release clause in contract, buying club activates release clause, selling club now upset. What's the issue? And whilst those things are true, the issue here is how Spurs knew about the release clause, because when this news came out yesterday, everybody was surprised. Everybody was shocked. When Manchester City, and this is important, when Manchester City were linked to Morgan Gibbs-White at the end of the season, earlier on in the summer, the price tag that Nottingham Forest were asking for was round about the £70 million mark. So clearly, Manchester City did not know about this release clause at that point. Otherwise, they'd have been able to bid that 60 million on the assumption they would have wanted to. But their interest in Gibbs-White was serious between the 1st and 10th of June because they tried to get him, or wanted to get him, for the Club World Cup. In the end, they went for Reinders and Cherky instead and put Gibbs-White on hold. But a big part of the reason for that was the price tag associated with Gibbs-White, as Nottingham Forest were wanting more than his release clause of 60 million. So Manchester City did not know about it. That's important. Within Gibbs-White's contract, while he's got that release clause, there will be a confidentiality clause as well, which prevents Gibbs-White or his agent informing other clubs of the clause. It's basically a secret release clause. So if Manchester City bid 65 million, so Nottingham Forest says 70 please, they bid 65, Nottingham Forest then have to accept it because it's meeting the 60 million release clause. A secret clause. What Nottingham Forest are alleging here is that Spurs knew about Morgan Gibbs-White's £60 million release clause. Therefore, Spurs essentially tapped him up, got the personal deal agrees done, knew that Gibbs-White was willing to go to Spurs, and effectively they rocked up once the legwork was done, bid what they knew would trigger a release clause, skipped the negotiations with Nottingham Forest. Forest have to accept it then. And that's why Nottingham Forest have reported Spurs to the Premier League, because they believe that Spurs are in receipt and have knowledge of this release clause. So therefore, someone has informed them, and it's likely to be Gibbs-White, or more than likely to be his agent. And that is why Nottingham Forest have an issue with this, because it's not necessarily that the release clause has been triggered. That's not the issue. The issue is that Spurs knew about it and knew exactly, 60 million in this case, how much to bid, therefore skipping negotiations. That's the problem. That's why Nottingham Forest have reported Spurs to the Premier League. It's not necessarily the fact that he's got the release clause or it's been triggered. That's not the problem. It's that Spurs had knowledge of something they're not meant to have. And that is considered tapping up in football. And there's a really, really good recent example of this. And if you go back 24 months ago now, when Chelsea wanted to sign Michael Olise from Crystal Palace. He had a £35 million release clause, but Chelsea, what Crystal Palace believed was that Chelsea tapped Olise up, got information regarding the release clause, etc., etc. So when they approached Olise and then they approached Crystal Palace, Steve Parish basically said, you go ahead with this. We're causing problems. I can't remember if it was they were suing him, if he was going to report them. There was going to be pushback from Crystal Palace in regards to that transfer, which basically said, you go ahead with that deal if you want, but there will be a legal case coming your way because we believe that you've tapped up our player. We believe that you're in knowledge of this, which you're not meant to be, and we will be coming after you for it. And as a result, Chelsea backed right off. Olise ended up signing a new contract with Crystal Palace with a £70 million release clause, which was then public and everyone knew about it. And then Bayern Munich triggered it 12 months ago. So that was the resolution to that case. But it prevented Chelsea from going ahead with the purchase for Michael Olise because they got warned by Crystal Palace. And this is what's happening here. Nottingham Forest have warned, well, they've reported Spurs and warned them, we will take legal action if we have to. There's only really two solutions here. At this point, I think it's difficult for Gibbs-White to remain at Nottingham Forest because while Spurs are the guilty party, they're not the only guilty party here. And I think if this is proven to be true, I think he's burnt a few bridges with the Nottingham Forest fans. I would be unsurprised if they were really angry with him and thought he was a bit of a snake, etc., etc. I would understand that. Because it's not, you can accept your player having a desire to move on. Now, Gibbs-White's spoken before that the only club for him is Nottingham Forest and stuff like that. So there's already things he said that he's going against here. But even if he was trying to do everything the right way and that fans would accept, take West Ham and Declan Rice to give a personal example. I knew Rice's ambitions were greater than what West Ham had to offer him. He wanted to win the title. He wanted to win the Champions League. We weren't going to do that during Declan Rice's career. I understood why he wanted to leave. But there's a way of going about it. And I think he did it the right way. Now, I may have had an issue with him going to Arsenal because I thought, well, you're not going to win anything there. You want to win the title, you're going to go to Man City. So where he went, I may have had an issue with. But the way he went about it, I don't have an issue. He had a gentleman's agreement with West Ham. He didn't really kick off. He was very professional, helped win us a trophy. And then he left, and I genuinely wished him good luck when he left. There's ways of doing things, and I think what Gibbs-White has done here and manufactured here is the complete opposite. This is how not to leave your football club, because things can go wrong, and it has gone wrong for him now, because now the move is on hold. Because Spurs can't really proceed with this while this is ongoing. The Premier League are now going to have to investigate this. Nottingham Forest aren't going to let this one go through without a fight. Now, technically, arguably, there's nothing stopping it because they've triggered the release clause, but the deal is now on hold. Gibbs-White is now in limbo. And I think the solution here, you've got one, which is what Olise did, which is, right, okay, I'll sign a new contract with a greater release clause so I can get out of Palace, you can get a big fee for me. We'll let the world know about it, and then I'll go next summer. I'm unsure if that will be the solution here. I think the solution here is that Spurs has to pay more money. I think this is a prediction, my guess as to what the outcome will be, is that Tottenham will just have to buy Morgan Gibbs-White for a sum greater than his release clause, and if they almost erase the knowledge of the release clause, now we negotiate 70, 80 million, round about that ballpark figure. I'd imagine that's what will occur here. So that way, Forest get the fee they were wanting originally, Spurs get the player they were wanting, and the bit in the middle can get swept under the carpet. I do wonder, and I don't know here, I guess there's a question to anyone listening that does know, I do wonder what happens now if, hypothetically, Man City rocked up and bid 60 million, because there's nothing preventing them doing that, because that release clause is now public knowledge, and Man City, and I'm just using them as an example due to the previous link, put in a different club, any club, Chelsea, as we say, Man U, would you go to Man U? Chuck in any club, right? Liverpool, whatever, Newcastle. Newcastle's a good one to use. Chuck in Newcastle. What happens if Newcastle rock up and bid 60 million? Because it triggers the release clause, but they haven't done anything wrong. They now know about the secret clause because it's come out in the media due to what Spurs have done. I guess in that regards, that move could go through and Forest could possibly go after Spurs as a result of it. That would be my guess. A very, very messy transfer. And sometimes these deals do happen quickly. But it did feel... It was very surprising yesterday when the news came out. Spurs want him. That wasn't surprising. He's a very talented footballer. But how quickly it escalated from interest to release clause, which no one knew about, activated to medical. I wouldn't say it felt suspicious because I didn't really suspect any wrongdoing at this point. I was just surprised that no one had knowledge of the release clause, because a lot of people are aware of release clauses for players, especially if it's your player at your football team. You will tend to know about it if there is one. Like Eze, Crystal Palace, 68 million. We all know about it. We all know he's got a 68 million pound release clause. But the Gibbs-White one, I didn't see it reported anywhere. Quite the opposite. I've seen Nottingham Forest fans, when it came out, they're going, hang on a minute, what release clause? What's going on here? Since when has he had one? And Nottingham Forest had no intention of selling Gibbs-White this summer. And it was, funnily enough, it was ironically proven last night at the same time all this came out, because they released their new kit, which, by the way, is stunning. If you haven't seen the new Nottingham Forest home shirt, that's a bit of me, that is. Not that I want a Nottingham Forest shirt, right? But that is 10 out of 10 for that shirt. When I seen it, I thought, that's very nice. But Gibbs-White was in it. Gibbs-White was in the launch of the new shirt, and quickly it had to get taken down. A new one put up. The banner on the social media page had Gibbs-White in it. That had to come down. A new one went up. You don't do that if you're expecting him to leave. West Ham didn't have Mohamed Kudus in their kit launch because they knew he was likely to leave. So Nottingham Forest, I think, didn't expect him to go. Therefore, they would have had an air of confidence that this release clause wasn't getting triggered. Why was it not getting triggered? Well, it's not because no one wants to bid 60 million. I would argue that there's two clubs willing to bid 60 million this summer. Spurs, Man City. But, and this is what makes Tottenham's case difficult, I think. If Man City get dragged into this, and it's just a simple question, did you know about the release clause? No. Would you bid 60 million? Yes. I think that might be a bit of trouble for Tottenham, actually, because the rumoured price tag for City in the summer, and it is rumours, but usually rumours can be quite reliable these days. A lot of people know a lot of people. But the price was greater than 60 million. Tottenham could be in trouble here. I don't know what the potential outcome for this is. I don't know. I don't know. But like I said, my gut tells me... Well, it's not my gut, it's my head thinking about it. My head tells me I think Tottenham will buy him. The fee will just be greater than 60 million to compensate for... Shall we call it hassle? A legal approach? Naughtiness, whatever word you want to use, whatever you think Tottenham have done here, I think they'll just have to pay a few more million just to apologise to Nottingham Forest. But is there any way back from Gibbs-White at Nottingham Forest after this? It's difficult. It's really, really difficult, because their fans may see him as a bit of a snake. Completely understand why, because it is snaky. Having the release clause is one thing, but to then inform a club that's interested in you to engineer that move, that is snaky behaviour, and I'm not keen on it. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't be shy. I'll catch up with you tomorrow.